Hey there, what is going on? It is Rob from Crypto Bobby, and today I want to talk about an overall solid day in the market, really some nice, slow, steady gains, what that might mean, and then I also want to talk about the topic of dollar cost averaging your way into the market. It's something that I'm doing right now for continuing investments in the future, and I think it's a smart strategy for a lot of people that might either be more risk averse or are just interested in how to best invest in cryptocurrency. So I want to talk about dollar cost averaging, and in my opinion, some of the better ways to go ahead and do that. So thank you for taking the time to join me. If you are new to the channel, would love for you to hit a subscribe. That would be awesome. I don't always broadcast out of my Jeep Grand Cherokee, but if you can see here, I am literally at the side of a if you're watching the video, I am at a Starbucks right now, and I'm hanging out, and then I'm on the road for work at this point in time. So when I get back, when I finish this video, I'm going to upload it with Starbucks, and then I'll be driving back from Connecticut back home to kind of kick things off again. So I appreciate you bearing with me as I literally broadcast out of a Jeep Grand Cherokee. But let's get into it. So overall, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of the other currencies have had somewhat of a decent day for the most part. When we're looking at CoinMarketCap, the majority of crypto either hasn't moved too much today from the past 24 hours or hasn't necessarily had a massive jump or massive drop. Most gains or the majority, it looks like the majority of crypto today has had a slight gain. And there have been some small losses, but typically anywhere from gains between 1 and 10% and losses between 1 and 10%. So not a huge amount of crazy volatility. And while days like today could be boring overall in the space, especially when you're used to crazy market moves and volatility, I think it's good sometimes for things to settle down a little bit. And I'm liking what I'm seeing with a lot of these cryptos as well, especially from Ethereum standpoint. This is something that I think is interesting to me. Bitcoin as well is definitely interesting, but I think Ethereum, when we look at the market move it had recently, where it's kind of sitting at 300 for quite some time, spiked all the way up, you could see here, to 345 or so, and then dropped all the way back down to sub 300, and is now kind of moved from stabilizing around the 300 range to stabilizing around like the 318, 320 range or so, which is a slight little gain that I think is kind of going unnoticed, and because a lot of people are want those big massive gains. But if that type of movement can continue to creep up, I think that's great, and that's something I'm keeping my eye on personally. And then another really one of the big coins that had a decent day from for the most part was really two, Litecoin and Neo. Litecoin is having a nice movement as of, not necessarily back to its all-time highs, but pretty close. I mean, $49 is definitely a nice move for Litecoin. And then Neo as well, which has had a pretty decent drop from its all-time highs in the 50s down to was kind of chilling out in the 30s for a little bit of time. Now is looking into potentially breaking back up into the 40s, and did temporarily today. Neo I am out on right now. I moved a lot of my I took basically a lot of my profits in Neo that I bought at $6 and sold at around $38 to move into to DNT, to OAX, and to get some more OMG. So I'm currently out on Neo, although kind of with how things look right now, it looks like maybe that sell-off from the 50s to the mid-30s might be done at this point in time, and maybe it's a decent time to hop back into Neo. I don't have a ton of extra money lying on the sidelines to do so, though. I only have so much I can invest in crypto, but I'm definitely interested in potentially getting back into Neo at this point in time. So I'm certainly evaluating that and keeping that in mind, and I think that today's spike, if there's a little bit of a pullback there, I might try to to pop in around that $38 mark or so. So keeping an eye on what's going on with Neo. And overall, like I said, today, fairly stable day in the crypto space, comparatively speaking, when we're talking about crypto, having Bitcoin really basically being flat, Ethereum basically being flat for the most part if you're talking about 24-hour percentages. And I think today is a good day in the markets. If you're not losing money, it's a pretty good day. And I think it's a nice buying opportunity in a lot of specs as well. But one thing I do want to touch on is the topic of dollar cost averaging, and what that means essentially, and how you can leverage dollar cost averaging in your investing. So essentially, when you're looking at dollar cost averaging, it basically means rather than at a high level term, rather than if you have $10,000 that you want to invest in crypto, so you got 10 grand you want to invest in crypto, rather than putting all that $10,000 into, let's just say, Bitcoin today. You want to get into crypto, you want to buy $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. You can buy $10,000 today, but the problem with that is, what if Bitcoin crashes and you bought $10,000 at the high? You overexpose yourself to that day's, basically to that day's prices. Alternatively, you could dollar cost average your way in by meaning, hey, let me buy $1,000 this week. I'll buy $1,000 next week and $1,000 the week after that, or whatever you want to do, where you're basically averaging your way in. So, maybe you buy $1,000 of Bitcoin at $4,000. You buy $1,000 at $3,800. Then you buy $1,000 at $4,100. But basically, you're reducing your exposure to really sudden or large drops in a specific price. And if it drops, you're actually able to buy more, obviously, with that $1,000. So instead of, if Bitcoin crashes down to $3,000, you're able to buy a lot more of it. And the money you spend on it, or the money you invest, it just goes a lot further. So there's benefits to that. Obviously, the big drawback, though, is, let's say you wanted to invest right now. You wanted to invest $1,000 in Bitcoin every single week for the next 10 weeks. What if Bitcoin just goes up, which is definitely possible. It's absolutely possible. If Bitcoin just goes up, then you're buying less and less, and you would have been much better buying on that one day. But it's a conversation around how much risk are you willing to expose yourself to, and what are your kind of thoughts on on the space, and what are you interested in doing? I think dollar cost averaging is a really good strategy for a lot of people. And how I'm using dollar cost averaging personally now is I'm doing bi-weekly purchases of Bitcoin and Ethereum. I've started to do that where I'm just, no matter what the price is, I don't care. I'm going to do a bi-weekly purchase or every 2 weeks I'm going to buy a certain amount of Bitcoin. Let's just say $200 of Bitcoin and $200 of Litecoin. Or excuse me, $200 of Ethereum. And how I'm doing that, or how I'm going to continue to do this, is going to be through GDAX for the most part, just to avoid fees. And you can do this pretty easily on Coinbase. The only thing is you can set recurring buys on. So you can set a recurring buy on Coinbase, which is actually really easy to do. You can go in, you can set a recurring buy to happen every week, every month, every 2 weeks, whatever it might be. But with that being said, you're going to get a good portion of that money taken away in fees, whether that's the 1.5% for a bank transfer, or if that's let's say 4% for credit cards. You're going to lose some money in fees. Alternatively, you can go into GDAX, and what I'm going to be doing, and what I'm doing now, is I take this money, and what I'll do is I will deposit. I'll click on this deposit button here, and I'll use my bank account, and I will basically setting a reminder on my calendar that on the 15th and on the 1st of pretty much paycheck, on the 15th and on the 1st of every month, I'm going to go in and I'm going to deposit, I'm going to deposit a certain amount of money, and I'm going to buy it on that day. Or I'm actually going to, what I'm doing is I'm depositing the money on like the 10th and the 10th and the 20th, and then I'm going to purchase that cryptocurrency on the 15th and on the 1st, so that when I do that, number one, the money has had time to transfer into Coinbase or into GDAX, because it does take a little bit of time. If I scroll down here, there is a little bit of time associated with. There is certainly a little bit of time. Bank account transfers typically on GDAX will take 4 business days. So I want to do this 4 days ahead of time, just so that I can transfer the money in. The money's in there, and then on that day, regardless of the price, I'm going to go in. I'm going to buy, and I'm doing that twice a month, just so that I can kind of continually invest in the space. And it also kind of frees my mind up a little bit, as far as, okay, I'm always going to be investing. I'm going to continue to invest. I'm going to make a habit out of it, because I think that's important. For me, at least, I had my initial investment. I put a bunch of money in, but now I just want to continually get more and continually get more, because, if you were to do this a number of years ago, this would have, this is something that would have paid off really well for you. Obviously, there's no guarantee that the crypto market is going to continue at its upward trajectory. I think long term it's going to increase in value, which is why I'm going to continue to put more money into it. And this is the way I'm going to do it, is by just doing the deposit funds within GDAX, so that I'm not paying any fees. and then I'm just going to set limit buy orders for Bitcoin, 50% of Bitcoin, 50% of Ethereum, and then play with my kind of additional money elsewhere. So that's kind of how I'm dollar cost averaging my way in as well, and I'm doing it on a bi-monthly basis. So maybe on the 15th of the month, Bitcoin and Ethereum are at an all-time high. You know what? So what? I'm going to buy, and I'm going to suck it up because maybe the price is going to continue to go up. On the 30th, maybe the market's crashing. Maybe stuff is like doom and gloom, whatever. I'm going to buy anyway because that's just the strategy I'm going to try and make and try to put into place. And I have a lot of other money in the crypto space. I have a lot of other exposure. I mean, we can see from my portfolio here, this is from a fiat perspective, but I mean, I'm exposed to a number of different coins here on my website, and I'll put a link to it as well so you can kind of take a look at that. But I'm exposed to Ethereum. I don't have as much exposure with Bitcoin. I'm trying to buy into it now a little bit more, even though it's at prices that I think are quite high. But I have a lot of exposure with Ethereum, OMG, Civic. So I'm going to try to buy into these core coins, and then also with what I'm doing on that, buying into these core coins as I continue to purchase. And as I continue to purchase, I'm going to sock away more of it into my ledger, because ultimately, I like trading, and I like, having the ability to rebalance my portfolio. Like if I think, okay, right now, I have a lot of money in Civic, more than I really kind of am comfortable with, but at the same time, it's all money from my ICO, and it's 6x my initial investment. So do I want to rebalance that, or do I want to rebalance that and move money into another crypto? Or, I'm kind of coming to terms with that in my own head. But for now, it's socked away in my Ledger Nano S, so it's harder for me to access that, and it kind of removes that line of thinking. And that's what I try to do is, I try to have a little bit of exposure to trading. So if I think there's a big market movement coming, but for the most part, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of benefits to buying and holding in cryptocurrency. A lot of benefits to doing that. So that's kind of what I'm just trying to do is to buy, hold, dollar cost average, get more exposure. And then, if the market goes up, I'm going to buy. If the market goes down, I'm going to buy. If the market goes way, way down, I'm probably going to increase those buys as well, because I think ultimately we're not at cryptocurrency's all-time high. No means do I think that. So the market goes up, I'm going to buy. Market goes down, I'm going to buy. And then outside of that dollar cost averaging, if things go like, if Bitcoin drops 50%, if Ethereum drops 50% again, I'm going to take out the bank account, and I'm going to shell a bunch of money into it. So that's kind of my thought process on investing in dollar cost averaging right now. And I think it's important for, if you're kind of wondering how you should invest in crypto, I think this is a good way to approach it. If you're okay with the fees, just use Coinbase or Gemini or whatever you use. I don't want to advocate for one thing or another. I just kind of like GDAX, but use Gemini, use whatever system, or if you're not in the U.S., use whatever exchange that you like. If you're in Europe, if you're in Asia, use whatever you want, but just make sure that, I think it's a good habit, especially if you're long-term positive on cryptocurrency. It's a good habit to continually buy, on some type of basis. Set a recurring buy if you want, or just have the discipline to purchase when you're able to, because I think that's important, and ultimately what could provide you with really nice returns in the long run. And that's, I think, what a lot of us are out here for, is outside of just the technology and the interesting technology. I'm also here for some outsized returns that I'm not going to get anywhere else, and I want to maximize my exposure to those returns. So that's kind of my thought process there. And again, if you are new here, hopefully this was a helpful video for you. And sorry again for coming to you in my damn Jeep Grand Cherokee. And if you're listening, too bad. If you're listening on the podcast, too bad. But would love for you to hit the subscribe button. I do come out with daily videos on cryptocurrency. Also try to live stream as much as possible. I have the Crypto Happy Hour, where I kind of hang out with you, drink some beers, enjoy myself, and we talk through some things. So would love for you to get that content. If you have any questions, comments, I would love to hear about your buying strategy. So if you have a specific strategy you utilize to buy and sell cryptocurrency, or if you dollar cost average, or if you just try to bulk enter your way in, would love to hear about that. Sound off in the comments. Again, Rob from Crypto Bobby, thank you so much for your time today. It was awesome to speak with you, and I hope you have a great day. Good luck buying, trading, holding, selling, whatever you're doing. I appreciate your time. You're awesome for watching this. Thank you so much. Have a good one.